Did you know that over 600,000 people are released from prison a year in the United States? But nobody talks about what happens next after those people get released from prison. My name's Corrin. I'm a freelance criminal paralegal, owner of Lucid Legal Support. In today's video, I want to talk about the top 5 common misconceptions about reentry. Not only do I have a specialization in criminal defense and assisting with the litigation process that could result in a conviction and serving time, but one of my niches and specializations is also post-conviction relief and record-clearing remedies. I want to talk about how those remedies are so important because of these misconceptions that people have regarding reentry. The topic matters to me a lot because I've seen firsthand the barriers and the difficulties and the lack of people being able to move on with their lives, frankly, that serving time and having a criminal record has caused. And I want to bring awareness so that as a society, we can reduce this stigma of individuals who have criminal records. So the first misconception that I want to talk about is once you've served your time, you're free, right? Not exactly. So just because you're released from jail or prison doesn't mean that you still don't have a ton of other legal obligations on your plate. You could be on probation, which is supervision by an agent of the court. You could be on parole, which is again supervision by an agent of the court, but you have more severe consequences if you violate, which is going back to prison. Even if you're done serving your time, there could be restrictions while you're on supervision, such as travel. Maybe you can't leave the state, you can't leave the country. There's mandatory check-ins. You have to meet with your probation or parole officer, which obviously causes a lot of issues for people that maybe don't have transportation or they work a full-time job, or it's just another thing on your plate. Life's already hard enough, right? And you also might be on electronic home monitoring. So not only is that a travel restriction out of the country and state, but maybe that's just to your home and to work and back. Once you get released from prison, even though you're not put in this one facility, it doesn't mean that you still don't have other restrictions and requirements that you need to abide by. Another common misconception, which I think is the biggest, if not one of the biggest one, is, oh, well, you can easily get a job after you get out of prison, right? Hopefully this misconception is becoming to be more and more diminished, but no. Criminal records cause extreme barriers. There's still states that have the checkbox initiative if it's a felony, right? And there's no law against denying someone a job because they have a criminal record. They could be perfect on paper. I can't tell you how many clients I've worked with that are super interested in a specific job, a field, they're motivated, they're ambitious, they look amazing on paper, they do amazing in the interview, they get offered the job. Background check comes back and the company says, actually, we can't hire you. We see that you have something on your record. And what this causes is it causes a lot of issues for individuals to only hold low-paying jobs, or if it is maybe a little bit higher paying than minimum wage, it's a very dangerous job. There's a lot of positions that a lot of people don't want to do and fulfill that someone who's maybe desperate to have a job, abide by the conditions of their release, and support their family would have to do that someone otherwise wouldn't. Another big common misconception is that people think family and community support is always going to be there. Unfortunately, that's not always the case. It depends on how close you are with them, but the more that you're away from your family and community, then naturally I think people tend to be disconnected and the support diminishes. Think about someone who's maybe serving time for a year versus someone who's serving time for 10 years, 20 years. The likelihood of someone's family still being there is probably not high. And being that distant from your community, talk about stepping into a whole new world. Technology alone has advanced so much in the past couple years, let alone someone getting out from 10, 20 years, even just 5 years. When someone gets released, there's a lot of not only barriers to finances, but there's a lot of emotional barriers. In addition to that, I talked about the stigma just in the community of someone with a criminal record and just the lack of resources out there. When someone gets released from prison, they're not given any money. They're given the clothes on the backs that they came in with, and you are just out. If there's no one there to pick you up, if you don't have money to get a bus ticket or to get where you need to go, that's tough. I think is a really big misconception and doesn't get talked about at all really is that rehabilitation, it's a big term talked about, ends when your sentence ends. Now, we could go into the fact that incarceration is not rehabilitation. We could go into the fact that being on supervision is not being rehabilitated. I'm going to put those topics aside for the purpose of this video and say that our systems are not set up to rehabilitate. Now, here I am going into it. I want to say that even though prisons have programming, they do. Jails, maybe not as much. Maybe there are some options to try to rehabilitate, to try to work on the issues that you had when you went in. They're not foolproof. And if you're going from a place that has so much support to a place where you don't, that rehabilitation is not going to be upheld. You're still going to have mental health issues, potential addiction issues, anger management issues. You still might want to pursue further education. That stuff doesn't just end after a period of time. And switching environments like that so drastically does still require that support, stability, routine, something in place to help you with those issues that you either had while you were serving your time or beforehand. It doesn't just stop and someone's perfect. The last misconception that I want to highlight is everyone has that stigma and thinks that when someone gets out, they're just going to reoffend again. Interestingly, the data does show that recidivism is very high in the United States, but it's a lot more complex than that. If you're just looking at the data and the data alone, any type of criminal legal system data or criminal justice data is complex in itself. It's not measured consistently by each state and by the country across the United States. It takes a lot of interpretation by a professional. So to specifically pinpoint that, oh, the data says recidivism rates are, 60% or something, while that may be true, there's a lot of context that needs to be brought to that statistic and to that conversation. The reality is, based on the other misconceptions and items that I've talked about on this channel and on my LinkedIn, is that people who are now done serving their sentence or get out from custody, the reasoning for reoffending is because they don't have that support and they don't have the opportunities that they once did before they went through the criminal legal system. They can't get a job, they can't get housing, they can't get education, they don't have any familial or community support. What are people supposed to do? You need a place to live. You need to make a living. Sometimes you need education in order to better yourself, to make a better living. If people who have a criminal record don't have access to that, what else are they supposed to do? Just be homeless? So the context is so important in terms of recidivism and talking about these types of barriers that people have. I also want to touch on something that's been used to increase that stigma in media and with politicians in particular. I just recently learned about this actually, which is the Willie Horton effect, that says that politicians and media use incidents of recidivism to justify harsher sentences, to justify harsher policies, and they ignore all the other context of what the system does to people and what people are going through. And the crazy reality is that all of us break the law. I don't care who you are. We all commit crimes at one point or another in our life. We just didn't get caught. So the fact that we are penalizing the people that just happened to get caught so harshly for the rest of their life is absolutely insane. And the stigma needs to stop. One of the big reasons that the United States has such a high prison population and recidivism rate is because the individualistic community. I also heard recently that there's only a handful of countries in the world that are individualistic. It's the US, the UK, Australia, Northern Europe. Anywhere outside of that is community-based. And I think that if we can bring more of a community humanitarian perspective, we wouldn't have the issues of a high prison population. We wouldn't be spending our taxpayer money on all that. I just want to encourage the empathy. I want to encourage an informed and continued discussion on this. So if you enjoyed this video, feel free to like, comment, subscribe. Feel free to also follow me on LinkedIn. I'm super active on there with a lot of these topics. Thank you so much for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.